to Sex Acts of... Oh, wait a minute. Everybody, welcome back to the Collective Soul Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jen, and this is...
Jen, the sex addict.
From chapter, I think, 44 or 45 to 69 to the end of it.
Chapter 44
to
69.
To kin to at once. Never mind. Anyway, it's passion. It's love. It's wow. But it's also soulmate-ish. You know, they're soulmates and they have a bond, and it's, you know, they open up to one another finally, and they talk to each other, and they express to each other how they both feel about each other. Because, you know, one was thinking, oh, he doesn't like me that way, and I had these emotions about him, and he's probably he was thinking, well, she'll probably never see me that way. He didn't want to tell her that they were soulmates, that they had that type of bond, because he didn't want to push her into anything. He wanted her to find out on her own, but he also wanted to be able to tell her, but he didn't know how. There's a lot of what if, what should I, what could I type of scenarios that went on in this part of the book. And when they finally did express how they felt in more ways than one, with words, with the passion, with the lovemaking and the sex and the thought processes in the head as they were going on, and their little paper trails back and forth to each other of what they wanted. It's now, yes, the first book was a fairy tale. To me, that is a real time fairy tale.
Actually, it's I was going to talk about this at the end, but since we're talking about it now, that's something that I thought was really, really interesting. Because I viewed it like the first book, like I said, is a very traditional fairy tale style, right? The story, you kind of ignore all of the things that are kind of red flags in real life.
Right.
And the second one is more healthy or more realistic.
Right.
Like what you would expect a healthy relationship to look like as it develops, right?
Right.
You know, she's broken.
Right.
She's got a lot of trauma. He's got a lot of trauma too.
Yeah, and he was broken as well.
And, you know, they're there for each other. They become friends.
They build a foundation.
Right. Then from the friends, then they start developing feelings. They struggle with those feelings. And there's a sexual attraction there, and then you find out, then they find out that they're in love with each other, and then they find out that they're mates. So it's like this natural progression.
Well, he's always known that they were mates, but he wanted her to come to that conclusion. Even though he did say, you know, there was times I wanted to tell you. I didn't know how to tell you. Because sometimes it can be, you know, like, whoa, what do you mean? You know, in this story, at that moment, at many different moments where Rhys felt like he wanted to tell her, he just wasn't comfortable enough to tell her because he was afraid how she will respond to it. Because he didn't know if she was still in love with that narcissistic son of a bitch, or, you know, or if she was still too hurt inside to allow anyone else in. So a lot of things came to play, but this, I can see why this is your favorite book out of the series.
It's my favorite book of all time. I've read a lot of books.
Yeah.
And obviously there are a lot of books that are very well written.
This is extremely well written.
But there's something about this particular book that just it's a fantasy story, but at the same time it felt very real, which is very unusual, because usually when you read things, at least when I read things, I read a lot of stuff for escapism.
Right.
I don't read a lot of realistic stuff because it brings me down. I need to get away from all that.
Right.
But there was just something about this that still felt like home in a sense. Like you weren't reading something that was super far-fetched. Usually it's like maybe not fairy tale level, but like, you know, you're talking about these fantasy worlds and things like that, and you know, there's certain things that might connect with people, but like I don't know, I felt like I really connected with pretty much everything that was going on in it.
And I can see that because I found connections with it, you know, now that I understand that he's not only part of the Night Court, but he's also part of the Sky Court. What is it? 2 courts that he is? I'm sorry.
Who?
Rhys.
He's just part of the Night Court.
Doesn't he have 2?
You're talking about you're talking about the Night Court, but it has 2. It's got the Court of Dreams and the Court of Nightmares.
Right. So to me, the Court of Nightmares is the sloths underneath the down the demons,
the hewn city.
Yeah,
which is like under that mountain.
Yeah, under that mountain, the demons. To me, those are the demons. Those are demonic in nature because their intent are evil.
Yeah,
you know, their intent is to do bad. To me, when he's in Valaris, that to me is the Night Court in a sense, because you get to see the beautiful night sky and everything, and it's beautiful, and he's out at night and it just suits him, you know, because he is kind of dark and mysterious, but he's not evil. He's portrayed as evil, but he's not evil. He's actually very genuine and loving and caring. I'm like, wow, there's
I don't know. It's just something of like about the story, like through there's some, because I read a lot of fantasy, and you know you're interested in what's going on for the most part when you read, but when I read this series, especially starting with this particular book, because I read a lot while I work and I listen to audiobooks and stuff. There was just something about this where I was like super like invested in what was happening. Like I was upset when Valaris was attacked. Like when I first listened to that, I was super upset about it.
She wouldn't tell me things. She just kept telling me that something's going to happen, and I didn't like it when it happened. And this is not the first time she's actually listened to this book, and this is like your 3rd time, because you've read the book and then you've listened.
I've listened to the
audio twice now. 1 time alone and then 1 time with me, right?
Yes. So and we're listening to the dramatization of it with the actors and stuff. So,
and which is done very brilliantly. I love it. It really brings you into the story, and I hope the show is just as brilliant. When Feyre, I know we're jumping all over the place, but when Freya and starts with a C, Clara, I'm
Cassian?
Cassian, yes.
Okay.
We're standing on the bridge.
Oh.
And she was watching the water, and then she could tell that there was something fluctuating with the water that was different, and then they were actually filling it on the bridge, and then they started looking around. And then I'm like, what the fuck is going on? As I'm listening to this, I'm like, no, you know, and that it actually pissed me off.
Yeah.
Because this was a city of peace and prosperity. People, you know, loved everyone and cared about everyone and worked together with everyone. You know, they all could live together. It's possible. And they turned and used that against them, and probably would not have had the one sister not leave behind the item they asked for. But because she did, then I guess that's the reason why they took it out on them and sent them there.
Well, that's why they killed the sister.
Well, yeah, but that...
they would have attacked Valaris anyway. They were already working with Hybern by that point.
See, because that pisses me off. But to see, keep telling you, I'm every woman. That's what she is. she went in ass-kicking mode again. And she was ripping ass. She was ripping ass, cutting off heads, and didn't give a shit what their names were. Because they were all trash. So, I know we're jumping all over the place. We're totally jumping all over the place. Because, but this part of the book, there was so much going on in it for me. A lot of it made me red in the face, but that was okay. You know, all that sex. I mean, I was a little jealous. I hate to admit it. No, just kidding.
But there's something about that too. Like the entire, everybody knew it was gonna happen.
Of
it's
course,
not like a shock, right?
Well, but the whole time up till then, I was like, "Would you just fucking get it over with?"
Right. Because but there's something very satisfying about that. When it happens, because you have all this build up and build up and build up, and then it finally happens.
Yes.
But it's also really beautiful too.
It is,
because it's not just a sex scene.
No.
It's more of a love scene.
It's
really.
Love. It's two people just pouring out their emotions. They're being playful. They're just going with the flow of what they're feeling for each other in that moment when they touch, and then whoo-hoo. Yes, I could have sat there with patches over my eyes and still could not keeping it out of my head. I would have need earphones too. It was very, very, very well written and laid out.
I want to share something.
What do you want to share?
And with you guys. That somebody had posted in one of the Facebook groups that I belong to for A Court of Thorns and Roses. And so this was posted by Casey England. And I'm going to read it because I totally felt the same way, and it applies to what we're talking about right now.
Okay.
So it says, I love the ACOTAR series, Court of Thorns and Roses series. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you why. It showed me what love was supposed to be, and it showed me what it wasn't supposed to be. It showed me that it's okay to choose yourself instead of the man you thought you loved because it's what's best for you. It taught me that while yes, things seem bad, it will get better, and that's something to look forward to and have hope for. And then she obviously went on to thank, for sharing, to the group. But I thought that was a really good summary of
it is
why a lot of people really, really love this series.
Especially this particular book.
Yeah.
In the beginning, when they go back to Spring Court and she's trying to talk to Tamlin and wanting to be heard, wanting to be treated, like a human or as be respected. She's dealing with stuff. She didn't want to be left alone. She wanted to be with him. She wanted to be with someone who she thought loved her enough that would want to take her and not leave her alone and not make her feel like she had to be a prisoner in her own home. And as time went by, he seals her in. He seals the whole area. She can't get out. I mean, with their wedding day, she was so nervous. It was like, what am I doing? She just couldn't take it anymore because it wasn't what she wanted. Not saying she didn't, at that moment, she didn't want to marry Tamlin. It's just that everything else that was done and brought along to happen, to unfold, wasn't what she wanted, is what that other girl wanted for her.
Or what Tamlin wanted.
Or maybe what Tamlin wanted. It's supposed to be her wedding day. If it's her wedding day and she's the bride, why not her have some say? So it was too much for her. And so she mentally started asking, just someone get me out of here. Please, someone just get me out of here. And she panicked. She froze. And pops him. He was never going to take her. But because she asked for someone to save her, to come in and take her. The only person that truly loved her and heard her ask for help. Even though he knew everything else was going on, he knew about her nightmares, he witnessed them and everything else. Unbeknown to her, he was having his own nightmares. He swooped in and took her.
Mm-hmm.
He never once treated her like she was a prisoner in his home.
Mm-hmm.
She had freedom. They tit for tat with each other. She called him prick. He would just chuckle. And he let her voice herself. He let her do what she wanted to do. And because he let her be her in that moment, created a friendship and a foundation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the more that she went back, and the more that she went back to him, and then went back, and then that was the last straw because Tamlin sealed her in the house, and he couldn't go get her, but he had to send someone else to go get her. And then she goes there and she realizes, she's seeing the pattern. Anybody that can take what's happening to them and analyze it and process it and realize that they feel more protected, more respected, and they feel better when they're with someone who was supposedly the bad guy, supposedly the person that put this thing on her because he was trying to keep her from everyone, but he did it to save her life. Supposedly, she was now unraveling all the supposedly shit that everyone was spewing to her. Mm-hmm. And she was seeing it with her own eyes. He's not that way. These people are not this way. They're a family. They act like a family. They play with each other. They pick on each other. It's a camaraderie that they have with each other. It's a form of love.
Right.
And when you wake up and you realize that, where do you truly want to be? Mm-hmm. Do you want to be with someone who locks you underneath their thumb, their key in their home, and dresses you up, makes you look pretty and everything else, and wants you to act like a good little girl? And you're not allowed to say anything, and you're not allowed to bat an eyelash unless they tell you you're allowed? Or do you want to be with someone who's going to, no, be yourself? I'm going to be myself. I'm going to do what I want to do. I want you to do what you want to do. Because that's how a real relationship works.
Right.
Because my philosophy has always been, after dealing with my own narcissist in my life, me taking and going on my own journey, trying to figure out what happened, taking psychology, doing things, is that two people that want to be together, they are still individual. Mm-hmm. They are themselves. They both have to acknowledge the fact that they cannot change each other.
Right.
That they have to allow each person to be themselves, but still be willing to walk side by side on a journey together, each walking their own path, supporting each other,
right?
Being there through thick and thin. Not saying you shouldn't have done that. You can't do that because then you're telling them they're not. It's like saying you're not allowed to breathe. Hold your breath. Mm-hmm. You're not allowed to live. Don't.
Right.
You can't do that. And that was the big difference in this book that I, as we were listening, was seeing. And that's why the more, I was like, Tamlin's such a fucking narcissist. Because Rhys wouldn't do that to her.
Right. And it's interesting, and that's why I kept saying that, like, I was trying to warn you, because people have a hard time with that, because we're so used to reading stories, right? Or having this idea about how romance is supposed to be. I mean, obviously, there's a feminist movement and stuff going on, but traditionally, right, everybody, there's this kind of, like, we always kind of put romance kind of in a separate category sometimes with its own rules.
Well, like, if I truly love someone, I'm going to support them in what they do. And if they're sick, I'm going to help them get better. If they're struggling, I'm going to be the ear that they could talk to. But I always seem to be in a relationship where I'm the only one doing that, and the guy that I'm with never does it back for me.
Right.
You know, it's, the compromising is never there. I am doing all the compromising, and they're stealing it all.
Right.
To me, romanticizing or being romantic in not just a sexual content, but in a relationship, is that when I'm sick, they take care of me.
But you're talking about the reality of it, right?
Right.
So what I'm trying to say is that regardless, like, the idea of romance, right? Like, we know kind of deep down what it should be. It's hidden away somewhere. But it, you know, the idea of fairy tales, right? Okay, everybody grows up with this idea of fairy tales and what that's like. Everybody loves movies and things that they know are not realistic, and they want to be swept off their feet, and we like ignore all of these things, right? Even in your own relationships, when you're younger, when you're going through life, you look back on it and you go, "What the fuck?" Like, because we've never seen what it's supposed to look like, right? You're basing everything on what you've learned from stories and from media. And what I find interesting about this series is that it does it on purpose to kind of show you that this is what's happening. This is what's actually going on. This is what, you know, because you're reading the first book, and the first book
is so fantasy,
right?
So,
and
so true,
right? So there's two people usually that read. Now I'm basing this off of all the people I know, like on social media and in my own life, that have read the series, right? There's two people that will, when they read the first book, will have two different opinions. Okay, the one opinion is when we first read it, and it's really hard when you read the first book, because you have a totally different opinion of Tamlin, right?
Right, you think that he's
and I'm all sitting there going, and
because it makes you think of the stories you read when growing up: Cinderella, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty. Those were all fairy tales. They were all made that your prince will ride in on a white steed and carry you off, and you live happily ever after. Well, happily ever after doesn't happen that way.
Right. And again, people know that deep down, but again, you don't, right? There's still this belief that you really want that to be real, right? Even though it's not. And so you're either going to be one of two people. You're going to be that person that reads it and is going to go, "Oh, this is a fairy tale. So I understand it's a fairy tale. So I don't care what's actually really happening. There's not basis in reality. This is just, this is so sweet and wonderful." But
towards the end of the book, I was seeing things a little differently with the first book, because the shit that he was doing.
Well, yeah. But I mean, we and you were talking about it on this podcast, so it's a little bit when you start overanalyzing things. Yeah. But even in the beginning,
I thought it was like a cute, you know. I thought it was a true fairy tale, because you said this book is a fairy tale.
And again, I was warning you. There's some people who go into it blind, right? So if you love fairy tales, you're going to be like that, right? Yeah. Then the other kind of people are the people that are these over-feminist people. So and when they read it, they absolutely can't stand the book, because and then they're like, "I don't want to read the second book," and so you always have to try to be like, "Hey, the reason why this is there's a point to why this is written as a fairy tale, because they're going to prove you right." I don't say that to people, nobody says that, right? But whenever you try to get someone to read it, I always tell them, wait until you've read the second book, and then you tell me what you really think, because it's the story itself is very empowering. It's just, she starts off showing you what you would expect, from a romance,
Well, from a fairy tale,
I mean, even if you're not reading a romance like as a fairy tale, typically when you watch a romantic anything, there's going to be this element of like ridiculousness.
I mean, even dramas are like this,
where it's like this. But the thing is that we absorb that information in, and deep down we know that this is not healthy. This is not feel good, not realistic. But we absorb that in, and then we end up applying this in our everyday lives, and then we end up kicking ourselves in the ass because we already knew this, but we put ourselves through all this stuff. And so the series to me is almost a perfect example of what you should and shouldn't do. It's almost like these people should be reading this, first, and trying to get it, because most obviously this is an adult book, so you're already screwed when you read it. You've already gone through all that. Yeah. But like, if there wasn't like the sex and everything in it, right? If you gave this to somebody who was like maybe a middle schooler or something like this, oh God, no, they might actually, without the sex, right? They would at least have an example, right? Because you have this overly romanticized story, right? Where this guy is really not doing anything for her. Not really. He's doing everything for himself to break this curse. And he has all these red flags going on that people always ignore red flags in relationships. Mm-hmm. And it's all beautiful and whatever. But then the second book is, this is what actually your relationship should look like. Right. You should feel calm. You should feel comfortable. You should be able to be yourself. Right. And you should develop things slowly. You should have a friendship. You should... these are things that people... This is not natural to people. No. It's very sad that you have to sit there and we have to have these conversations, because when you sit down and think about it, they're really common sense. But people really don't do these things.
No, they don't. And if I had to say, oh yeah, the first book was definitely fairy tale, it makes you think of, like I said, Cinderella, Snow White, it's definitely a fairy tale. Had I said, when you read book 2, you would think you were reading someone's autobiography. Mm-hmm. Because it's that well written. It's written how broken girl finds broken boy, become friends, actually have been friends since Under the Mountain, become stronger friends, better acquainted, or able to start opening up and talking to one another. And as time goes on, being around each other, feelings start to develop. And, and those feelings are like, what am I feeling? Because they're not butterflies. It's something that hits you. Yeah, it's like, what? Why am I emotional over this? Yeah. What is this about? Most people who say that they meet someone that they like, they have butterflies in their stomach, they get all googly and and nervous. No, if you're going to meet someone you're supposed to be with, you're not going to be nervous. You're not going to have butterflies. There's going to be a calmness. There's going to be a sensation of a knowiness.
It'll feel like home.
Right.
And she actually says that in the book too. Yeah. Where she realizes she tells the bone carver, mm-hmm. right, that when she died, she went home. There was that feeling of being home, and then later on, obviously, she finds out that the reason why she hung out on was because Rhys was keeping her there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's how you should feel. Right. I mean, she feels. Not just with him, but.
Even with people in his court.
That's a whole nother underlying thing in the book too, is that other people in your life too, mm-hmm. Family, and none of those people are really everyone's not 100% related to one another, no. But they're still family, and right. A sense of belonging right. to something, and
that's meaningful,
right? And feeling like you have something to go home to, and right. I think again when you read the book. You connect with that, right? You actually feel like you're a part of what's actually happening to her, right? Like, you feel like you're a part of the group, mm-hmm. and then you have an attachment to Valaris and all that stuff because you start to, feel like you're home in a sense.
Right. I wish there was a place called Valaris that I could go to. I would love to be in the arts and music area because that would be my jam, I'd sit there and paint and listen to music. I'd be happy with that. And then just sit out on my roof every night and look at the stars because I like to stargaze. Mm-hmm. That would be the perfect place for me to, be. But...
And she makes, she notices that too later on with the other characters too, right? Like, she compares, the inner circle, right, with the other people that she was around in the Spring Court, like Lucian and Ianthe and these people are not helping, really. I mean, she's a complete, horrible... She's worse than Tamlin, but...
she is a whore, and she is a bitch, so...
And, Lucian has a lot of issues, his own personal issues.
But I think Lucian really did want to help her.
He did, yeah.
And I think he does care about her. The only problem is, Tamlin is a narcissist. He is a person that does not listen well to others. So Lucian's not, if it's not something to do about work, he's not going to listen. Because you're a narcissistic.
Tamlin, I don't think will listen to anybody. That's just the way he is.
He's a pig-headed.
But Lucian, I think he's going through his own Stockholm syndrome. And
of course he is.
He has nowhere to go. He has nowhere to go, and he thinks that Tamlin is his friend. And I a part of me, he is. But again... He does the same thing to Lucian as he does to Feyre.
But now that Feyre's middle sister is his mate, that might change.
We'll just have to see, won't we?
I know.
I can't say anything
I
about
know
that.
You can't say,
but you'll find out about that in book 3.
No, good. Because... that might change.
That might change.
He might actually be happy for now on and get away from Tamlin too. Then again, I don't know. So the way he approached her and her family about taking her, that's when it first clicked for me.
Well, this is not the beginning.
Yeah, So, and then well, you would have to come with me, or da-da-da-da-da. But I thought it was going to go, south. But then when you found out that he was taking care of her family, it was like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't see that. Well, that was kind of him. But there was still a reason for him to be doing that. He's still trying to get her to fall
in
love with him. But as you're reading this or listening to that, you're like, oh, that's so sweet,
Yeah.
Yes and no. It's different when you've been in that situation.
Right.
I saw like, man, that's a red flag. That what he just said to her right there, that's a red flag.
Yeah, but because it's a romance, right? And you just kind of go, oh, this is a story, or this is it's gonna work out in the end, or whatever. It'll be fine.
But does it all walk out in the wash? No, it doesn't.
And the other thing too is he's very, he wants to be obeyed, and that whole thing.
And she could never be his equal.
Yes.
I'm like, what?
Right.
So, but the second book, though, that's the kind of love I want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I may not get to this lifetime, but when I come back next lifetime, that's the kind of love I want.
Right.
So.
But that's the point.
Yeah.
Everybody should have that same opinion when you finish it, right? Because that's the contrast there, right? This is that overly romanticized version of what people think love is, and then this is what love actually should look like.
Right.
And it takes a lot more work.
Yes, it does. It's not easy. And
it's rare.
It is rare. And it's not easy when you're the only person doing it.
Right.
You have to be with someone who's willing
right.
to go all the way with you, not halfway, go all the way. Mm-hmm. And you let them be a human being and do what they want to do. And they let you be a human being and let you do what you want to do. But you're still there for each other. You still support each other. And I need someone who is dependable, but yet independent. Mm-hmm. And I want them to be the same way with me, Right. So, and it's difficult. It really is. And a lot of these people think that even in their own relationships, and I look at them and I'm like, why are you even in that relationship?
Because people ignore the red flags, right? That's what we did in the first book. You ignore the red flags because it's in the name of love, right? Because
in the name of
and then that
love.
person ends up being the giver, right? And they're assuming that the little stuff that they get is a representation of love being received. But in reality, that's not what that is. It's something else. It's selfish. Like the person is doing something out of a selfish need for something.
Right.
So by the time, you're invested in the relationship, it's you're so blinded at that point that you're in love with that person. And you're already the one giving so much that you're sacrificing yourself, right?
Right.
And that's what she does, right? That whole ending part of the book, she completely self-sacrifices herself for Tamlin. And
the spring court, yeah. Because it's his court. It's his family. It's his home.
She completely, I mean, if you look about if this was a real thing happening, there's so many red flags. She doesn't even know him that long.
No.
What has he done? What kind of relationship do they have to warrant that much self-sacrifice? It's obviously it's a fantasy story. It's a fairy tale. When you think about it in realistic terms, people do this in their real lives.
Yes.
Where it's like they're...
I mean, I could see if they knew each other for 3, 4, 5 years. And they
developed a
good foundation.
But the thing is that in the second book, she's still the same person.
Right.
She self-sacrifices herself at the end of the book, too. But there's a difference.
There's real love there. There's real compassion. There's real admiration between two people that help heal each other.
Right.
And listen to each other and supported each other. And didn't try to control or manipulate each other to do things their way. Because Rhys was always very clear about you do what you want to do. Because he wanted her to do, because he knew she did not like to be locked up. He knew she did not like to feel trapped. Any true human being with their head set on right does not want to be that way, does not want to feel restricted. When you start making someone feel restricted, they will push against you and they will push away, or they will walk away, or they will shut down. They don't want to be, you have to let people breathe. You have to let them do what it is that they want to do. When they want to spend time with you, you let them spend time with you. When they want to be left alone and do their thing, there's nothing wrong with communicating, because communicating is communication is the key. If you cannot communicate to each other what it is that your wants, your desires, your needs, your how you feel, no matter who they are, whether it's a boyfriend, husband, a mother, a father, a sister, a brother, a friend, if you cannot communicate with them, then obviously something's wrong.
Right.
Because to have a good relationship with anyone on any terms, business or personal, you have to have integrity, honesty, trust, and loyalty. You have to have a foundation. You have to be able to communicate. That all of those go hand in hand. And actually, if you have integrity, you will have all of those, because that's all underneath in the integrity umbrella.
But like, we're going back to the book, right?
Yep.
Like the you're talking about the endings of the books, right? They're almost parallels, right?
Almost.
It's because you've got each book represents a relationship development.
Right.
And they both end in sacrifice.
Right.
And going back to what we were talking about there's nothing wrong with sacrifice. Okay?
No, there's not.
But it shows you when it's healthy and when it's not healthy.
Right.
Right? Because in the first book, she sacrifices herself. And there's nothing wrong with what she does, but the fact that she's alone doing it, right?
Yes.
Because the entire book, she had no clue what was going on.
No.
She had no idea about the curse. She didn't know why anything. She didn't even know she didn't even know that there were fairies. He had hid the fairies from her, so she couldn't see. She had no sight to see the fairies. So there was all these things that were being kept from her. She didn't know anything that was going on.
Which is basically lying to her.
Right. And after she discovers the truth, she decides she's going to go self-sacrifice. Again, nothing wrong with the sacrifice, right? She's doing it out of the kindness of her heart or whatever for other people. But she's doing it alone. Mm-hmm. And there's not been any of those things that you've been talking about, honesty, integrity, blah, 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 right?
No.
And then when she gets to the under the mountain, Tamlin just says nothing. He does nothing. He doesn't even know her. She doesn't really even know him. Right. Because they don't have integrity and honesty and all of these things.
No.
So she's going through this whole thing completely alone. If Rhys wasn't there at all, she would have been fucking dead. Yes. Because he was really the only thing keeping her alive.
And Rhys made a valid point in that, towards the end there, that when Tamlin was allowed to roam free, thinking that he would go get Feyre and leave, he didn't.
No.
He wanted to bed her.
Right.
Well, I'm sorry. That is a huge red flag. You're not going to want to take the woman you love and get her the hell out of there?
Right. I mean, and again, you learn in this book, right, that Rhys tried to do that. The only reason why Tamlin even sent her away was because Rhys put on that whole show to scare him so that he would send her away. Otherwise, she probably would have been dead because...
Right.
He just wanted to break the curse. But Rhys knew that if she did break the curse, Amarantha would just come and kill her afterwards.
Yeah. And it was sad that Amarantha did what she did to her.
Yeah.
You know, because this is a human brought into a magical world. And that not only saved Tamlin, who she felt she was in love with and felt he loved her, but she saves everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Alone.
On her,
I mean, with a little bit of Rhys.
Rhys.
But again, you know, after you read the second book, you know, of course he's the only one helping her, right?
Right. Because he's the only one that isn't selfish enough not to help her.
Because he understands. What's sad about it, though, is that he even understands her even then. And he doesn't really... He knows her less than Tamlin knows her. So... And then going back to the second book ending, right? She self-sacrifices again.
Yep.
But the difference is, even though she can't talk to Rhys, right? Mm-hmm. And they have no magic, Rhys knows that she's faking it. Mm-hmm. And he plays along. Mm-hmm. And Moore realizes she's faking it. Mm-hmm. And plays along. Mm-hmm. And they are all helping and assisting. And they know each other.
And the other two couldn't understand it, but they were also too much pain.
Yeah, they were injured bad.
And injured and losing their life essence was leaving their bodies. So they could not wrap their head around that. It's like, you know, what do you do? So Rhys gets his two brothers out and Moore gets her two sisters out and puts them someplace safe. Well, she's a wolf in sheep's clothing now, isn't she?
But the difference, right? Is she's still self-sacrificing herself, but the difference is she's not doing it alone. Even though she made the decision to do it alone, that she didn't do it alone. Yeah. And they knew her well enough to understand what she was doing without actually knowing what she was doing.
And then when they were asking... not Morg, but the other girl was asking where she was.
Oh, yeah.
He goes, where is she? You know, because she should be home with them, their family. And he goes, my high lady. And she goes, well, my high lady.
Well, nobody knew about that.
Right. And she goes, well, if she's, you know, my high lady, she should be here. I should be protecting her. You know, and she, you know, they're friends. Yeah. And he goes, she could take care of herself, you know. And they were all like, had they removed the other glove, they would have solved the other bond.
The tattoo of her commitment to the court, right? She's the High Lady of the Night Court.
Yeah. And it was so cool to hear him say, no, she's my equal. And Tamlin would never utter those words because no narcissist, no one who wants to control will ever make anyone feel like they're equal. They will always make you feel less than what they are, and they will always make you feel like that anything that's going wrong is your fault. So I know I lived it. So what else?
Well, since we're just all
over the place, I know.
Let's see what stuff we haven't talked about. So we didn't talk about Starfall, which is
my god, that was so cool. But so wicked. So like they go out for it's Starfall. They got her all dressed up and everything. She had a beautiful dress on. And evidently they were fighting at the time or arguing, and he kind of left and he wasn't back yet.
Well, yeah, it was days.
It was days. And she's like, oh, well, be a coward and stay away or something like that. And do whatever you want or something. And then he actually showed up. But it's like spirits. They're spirits that
look like falling stars. Yeah.
And they get hit in the face. That was so hilarious. This green, glittery kind of gook on their face and everything. It's like being hit with fireflies or something. Mm-hmm. That's kind of funny. But it's so pretty to watch, evidently. The way that they spoke about it, and they drew such a beautiful picture about what you see unfold, how they come whipping down and around and everything. It sounded really pretty.
And I think at that point, too, it is right after the Court of Nightmares scene. Mm-hmm. But that particular scene is like a turning point. Mm-hmm. Because I think she kind of accepts her feelings at that point. Mm-hmm. Like, she actually, like, touches him and stuff. Like, you know, she paints on his hand and she touches his face and all that stuff. Which, you know, she doesn't do...
Well, they fought and argue, and that she realizes that even though with him being away, she realizes she does have feelings for him. Mm-hmm. And that's why the last message she sent to him was, okay, be a coward.
Yeah. He never responded.
No, he took the message. That was the only message that disappeared and went to him, but never came back. He never sent one back. And then here was, you know, the skyfall, and then he finally shows up. You know, he was waiting for the right time to come back. And he says, you were right. I was being a coward.
When they're out training, like magical training, right? Because they're away from the Illyrian camp.
Right.
They stay at this inn, this Illyrian inn.
Like, Right.
And they have that little sexual scene.
Yes.
Even though they don't have sex, but...
Right. Yes.
But she says she just wants a distraction. I was
like...
When I first read that, I was like, really? Asshole?
That's so mean. He likes you. You're being dumb.
But,
yeah.
But because of that...
It hurt him when she said that.
And he was super distracted, right? And they were having, like, a conversation the next day. Mm-hmm. And, like, he was going to tell her.
Yeah.
Because he says, there's, like... What was it? He says, like... There's one more story I have to tell you. He was going to tell her there, but then he gets attacked.
Yes. And he gets shot down with arrows that have poison on them.
Yeah, they're ash arrows and they have poison
on them. So it was... And that's the first time she goes on her own to kick ass.
Yeah, and that's the first time that she's... really like starts to really use, like, she starts winnowing and starts really using, you know, all her skills.
Yeah. She really does a number.
Well, she doesn't realize that they're soulmates, but that she kind of loses
but she feels like as she analyzes it when he's laying there, you know, she didn't know what else to do with him. As she's analyzing it, what, you know, why did I care so much? What to come after him? But, you know, it just felt so right to come and protect him. I had to protect him. And she goes, but I got to figure out what's wrong with him. His wounds aren't healing, you know, because his wings were damaged. And she's like, takes off her clothes, what she could, that, like, I guess, coat or whatever she had on underneath to keep him warm because he's shivering, because she can't start a fire in this cave she willowed in or whatever you want to call it. And she takes her cloak because Serial likes pretty stuff. So she goes and she sets a snare and boom, she catches him. And he just starts talking to her because he knows who she is.
Yeah, and she kind of hints that he's probably could get out of it. He could probably get out of it, but he's helping her.
Right.
And she asks about the how to cure the poison and that, and he just like randomly just kind of calls him her mate or whatever. And
Your
she
mate.
doesn't really catch it at the beginning, but then she's like, wait, what?
What? Yeah.
And then, of course, she's like, how long has he known?
So she had to go find the flower. Yeah, and he's known for a while. So, but as he tells her the little story, but she realizes that her blood and this flower could help heal him because her blood is very magical because it's all 7. No,
it's one of the powers from one of the High Lords.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I did not catch
Dawn
that.
Court, I believe.
I thought
it's the High Lord of the Dawn Court. He, I think it's the Dawn Court. Yeah, he has healing powers.
Oh.
So it's not something that you would obviously know.
Oh, so, but she gives him 2 mouthfuls of her blood and this flower that he has to chew.
To make it go faster.
Yes, to help it move.
And she's pissed.
Oh, yeah, she's pissed the whole time.
Because he lied to her. He lied to her.
You could have told me.
Because he's absolutely 100% perfect this whole time, but he lied about that.
And nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. We all have our issues, some more than others, but...
And Moore takes her to the cabin.
Yeah. And then she stays there for a while, and she thinks Moore...
She paints for the first time.
Yes, for the first time. And, Moore comes back when she is painting, and she had painted eyes over
Amren's eyes.
Amren's eyes over to keep an eye on her, and then when no one's there, and then Moore says, "Well, how about you paint mine?" And
then she just starts adding
everybody else is up there, and tells her about how the boys would go there on a fishing trip or whatever and get drunk for 5 days and come back and
look horrible, but they're all happy.
And then a couple of more days go by and knocks on the door and she says, "Oh, Moore's back." And she goes to open the door. And I knew then that it was not Moore.
Yeah, I know. I know.
And I was like, that's Rhys.
That's chapter 54, right?
Yeah.
And I love chapter 54. And the reason why I love chapter 54, it's just him and his story. That's all it is. Because chapter 55 is their sex scene.
Right.
But chapter 54, the reason I love it is because it explains the entire first book.
Yes.
It tells you what actually was going on in the first book, which you don't realize when you first read it. So when you actually go back and read the first book again, you see the book in a completely different way. Right. Because he obviously does a lot more backstory than the first book. Like he talks about the war he was in.
Right.
His history with Amarantha, right?
Right.
But then he also talks about...
his mother, sister.
Right. But he talks about...
his
what
father.
Happened during the when you were reading the first book, right? So how he's known Feyre the whole time, right? And how he would get glimpses of her when she was a human and she was poor and like in the in the woods,
her painting
and the dresser story she told him while she was removing the arrows, right? He talks about how he's the one who sent her the image of the night sky that she painted on her drawer, right? She painted one drawer for Elaine, one drawer for Nesta, and then her drawer had
the night sky.
And then he tells her that was one of the glimpses he got when she was painting the drawer, and he decided he was going to try to see if he could send something to her. And then he obviously found out that it worked because she was telling him about the dresser before that.
She was painting flowers for Elaine.
And she painted flames for Nesta.
And he sent her the images of the night sky.
Right, but he didn't know if they went through.
Right.
But he got a confirmation they did because when she was pulling the arrows out of him, she was telling him that story to make him calm, right?
Right.
About how she was painting for the drawer or whatever, and she didn't know why she painted the night sky. And then when he tells her the story, then obviously she realizes that he sent her the thing. But then he's been having these glimpses of her the whole time. And then when he realizes that she's in Prythian, he decides to go to see her at Calumet.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he first meets her, he doesn't know who she is, but he's been dreaming about...
He knew who she was.
Right, he didn't know her name.
Right.
Right, but he's been having, like, for years, he's been having these visions of her. Mm-hmm. And he just went there just to see her.
Mm-hmm.
And
protected her that night, too.
Yeah, he protected her. And then you realize that when he went to see Tamlin, that one time that you see him, right, he didn't know that Feyre was there. Yeah. He didn't know that she was living in the Spring Court. He just knew that she was at that festival.
Right.
And so it shocked him when he realized that she was being glamored and she was there, right? Mm-hmm. But then once he realized that she was there with Tamlin and that she was part of the whole thing with the curse and all that, he scared Tamlin to get her the hell out of there.
Yeah.
And that's why Tamlin sent her away. And then you learn why he's helping her under the mountain and how
he sent her back home, right?
Yeah,
and that's how she saw that. Oh, Tamlin's been taking care of her siblings and her dad because they were living in such a nice house and everything. Yeah. Sent her home with a bunch of money and everything and Yeah. And then found out that girl was killed from down the way. But
you also learned too that Rhys didn't realize that girl was real. He just thought it was a fake name.
Right.
And then he thought he saved her because Tamlin sent her home. And then, like, when she showed up under the mountain, he was, like, really scared.
Yeah.
And then he decided that he was going to help her.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But then he admits that he was, like, already in love with her or whatever at that point. Yeah. And I mean, it's just, I love that chapter so much because I don't know. I don't know. It's
he bared his soul.
He bared his soul, and the whole thing is just about how much of a connection they had, I guess. Mm-hmm. But then again, it adds this whole other layer onto the story, right? So like when you read the second book, you just get the first book again. It's just this,
and plus it's not that often that a man, unless he really, really does love the woman, bears everything.
Right.
What all he's been through, what's going on, and this and that. And he did that with her.
And it's fun. And when you look at it from a writing perspective, it's really impressive.
It is very impressive.
Obviously, I have read it first, and then I've reread it again. And she planned that whole thing out, because when you go through and you read certain sections of it, there's actually parts that say there was a shadow watching, like when you actually really go back, and that's Rhys viewing things like in visions and stuff. It's really interesting.
Oh wow!
So it's very fascinating.
Yeah,
like how she planned that whole thing from the beginning. That it was never meant to be Tamlin when she wrote that. The whole thing was completely written to where the story in chapter 54 was actually what she was really writing. It just she just wrote it from Feyre's perspective, not his.
Wow. Wow.
So, and now we're at chapter 55.
Yes.
Which is after, she accepts the mating bond by offering him food. Because that's how you basically say yes. Soup. That's like their vows, basically, right? So if she makes him food, then...
and she wants him to eat it, she'll give it to him.
Yeah,
if she doesn't want to give it to him, she won't.
Right.
Because that's what she said.
Yeah.
And she did give it to him.
Yep, she did.
So, and then, bow chicka wow.
And I have to mention this because it's so rare to see this anywhere, really. But he actually cries.
Yes.
When she accepts, which I thought was really, I don't know.
Yeah. And that house was very magical. Because the bath water would just start, the sheets would just change on their own. Where can I get a house like that?
Where can I get everything?
Where can I get one that even cooks my food so I don't have to? Just cleans up. I can just putter around. So...
But yeah, so you have the sex scene.
Yeah.
The multiple sex
I don't
scenes.
smoke, but let me tell you.
The paint scene. Having sex with all the paint all over the place.
Oh my God. It was all over her. Oh. Jesus. Oh, it was very well written. It was really good. It kept your interest. And it was also embarrassing.
Because you weren't alone. It was me there.
I know. It's like,
and I was embarrassed, and I already.
And we're in the car. We're in the car. Jen's driving, and we're both looking out the opposite windows. It's like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Are they done yet?
I know, it's one of those things where it's like you like the scene, but at the same time you're like, oh my god,
I'm embarrassed to even listen to this right now. Damn, why is she getting so much?
And I know we didn't talk about this, and I'm going back, but we talked about this at the time, but, like, the part where, like, in the end, and they're not having sex, but they're
playing around.
That whole thing, and he, like, puts his fingers in his mouth. We talked about that before.
Yes.
We both looked at each other. It's like, yes, please.
I know. It's like, and I said, I always wanted a man who would do that.
Oh my god.
I'm sorry, but I told you, this is definitely an adult show. No kids allowed. You will never know.
After we've gotten all
you guys know this. I say this every time we're on the. So, I mean,
you shouldn't even be reading this book if you can't be.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And oh my god. Yeah, I thought I probably could smoke a pack of cigarettes after that episode.
I know, they didn't even have sex, and I was like, yeah, that's fine. You don't have to have sex. We're good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that little room, slanted roof. There's no room to move around.
He said he didn't have enough room to bed her. Yeah.
Yeah, to bed her properly with his wingspan.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay.
Spread her out like her own personal feast or something like that.
Which he did do.
Yeah, he did do in chapter 55. It was the very first scene, actually.
Yes. On that table with the paint
all
everywhere.
The paint's flying all over the place.
And she screamed like a...
But they still have yet to do it against the wall, so I'll just wait for that.
He goes next time.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else in that scene other than the sex. I mean, they did bring up a couple of interesting things, like the pregnancy thing.
Yeah, if she wanted to have babies, she could. She talked about taking the tonic. And, he said, she goes, when I get back, I guess I should start taking the tonic. And that's to keep her from getting pregnant, evidently. And he goes, if it's your choice, if that's what you wish to do. He goes, she goes, well, I didn't know if you want kids or not. He's all for kids, but it's when they're both ready. And they go on, and her last thing is no, I'm a little stingy, so I want to keep you to myself for a while.
Well, it's also a bad time. They're talking about it's not a good time. I mean, they're probably going to have a war.
Yeah, they're going to have a war, and she doesn't need to get pregnant right now because... he's a little weary about bringing children into the world because of what's going on.
And actually, the first thing that she says is what's interesting, right? Because it goes back to that experience she had in the beginning, where she has these preconceived notions. And the first thing she says is, I'm expected to bear you offspring. Right, because you're a High Lord or whatever. Right,
because that's Tamlin.
Right, because that's just what's expected.
Right.
She's a woman and that's your role kind of thing.
You have kids and you tend to the house.
Right.
And he never makes her feel that way. He makes her his equal. Which I think is the coolest fucking thing ever. So... And we should be each other's equals. If you're dating someone, married to someone, you're going to spend the rest of your life with them, whether you get married or not. That's who you choose. You should be equals. There's no, not one is better than the other. You should be equal. So,
we I know we're jumping around, but we learn, because Tamlin, he just gets, the more and more into the story we get, he just gets worse and worse. We learn that Tamlin and his family killed Rhys's sister and mother.
Yeah, which pissed me off.
And that apparently he has their wings in his library. or something.
Yeah.
I think it's library.
His dad's office or his office, library or someplace.
Something like that.
Someplace where I guess she's never seen them when she was there. From what I
guess we'll find out. She's in the spring court now.
She's in the spring court now. It wouldn't surprise me if she don't get those puppies and take them home.
Guess we'll find out.
And but the fact that here Rhys and Tamlin were friends when they were younger, which I didn't know, until we got to that part, and Rhys kept his dad from going in and killing Tamlin.
Right.
He's telling his dad, this is not right. This is not what you do. Mm-hmm. Because his dad killed everybody else in his Tamlin's family.
Right.
But that's because of what took place. Mm-hmm. When I found out, it's because Tamlin knew his mother and sister was going to be in the woods because he was going to go meet him, and that he was that ignorant to offer that information to his older brothers and his dad to actually commit those murders. That just right there nailed it for me completely, that I want to see Tamlin dead.
But it explains why they have the relationship they have. This whole, you knew that they didn't like each other. For other reasons, you just didn't really know what was going on.
But I mean, sometimes they say you should forgive those. I'm sorry, I don't think I could forgive anyone who killed my family. But why do that to someone, especially someone you're both in the same
because Tamlin
camp or whatever, or
he's not a good person.
Evidently not. Even if you go back and reread the book one, evidently he was never a good person. Even as a boy,
if you ever go back and reread the book, I swear to God,
I'll be analyzing everything. I'll be
like, okay, there's Rhys there. Look at the red flag here.
Red flag. You're lucky I gave your book back. You would probably get it back with a bunch of red flag. That are a bunch of pasty notes all over. Flag. You get it back, it's like, what is this? Those are just all the red flags.
But he does talk to Feyre about the situation because... Tamlin, I mean. On the first book, because she wants to know about what happened to Tamlin's family, and he just says that they were killed by a rival court. He doesn't tell her anything.
Nope.
At all about that situation.
No, but he didn't say, they were killed by the rival court because we killed their family first.
That's what I'm saying. He doesn't say any of that.
No, because, oh my God, he wouldn't want anyone to knock him off his bright little pedestal he's sitting himself upon.
This is a small thing, but it will be a bigger thing later, so I'll just mention it.
Okay.
When they go to the Illyrian camp with Cassian and Moore and Rhys and Feyre, they do mention that they're having a problem getting the Illyrians to train women.
Right. Right.
It's a very small thing right now, but this will become more of a thing later.
Yeah, they wanted them to do chores first.
Right. So it's this whole thing, this old school thing that's,
because women aren't supposed to be their equals.
Right. And the Illyrians actually clip the women's wings.
Which is wrong.
So that they can't fly.
That's wrong.
But obviously they're trying to change, Rhys is trying to change that.
Right.
So there's that part there. I'm just bringing that up because we're going to talk about that in another book.
Okay.
And then we have to talk about the day that when they're out magic training. Her and Feyre and Rhys are out magic training, and she hikes out really far because the other time she really lost her, the fire got out of control and Rhys was really close. Mm-hmm. So she hikes away from him. He's still there, but he's they're super far away from each other, and then Lucian and the 4 sentries show up.
Yeah.
And Lucian's there to take her home.
Yeah. Boy, Lucian didn't like what he got. I mean, She's like, I'm not going with you.
Right.
You can tell Tamlin that.
She's like, I've already told Tamlin that, but now you can tell him again.
And you can tell him I am not going home with you, and
And he doesn't care. He's like, nope. And all he had to do was touch her because she couldn't really winnow that well yet.
Right.
She was kind of iffy about it.
Right.
And all he had to do was touch her, and he could winnow her because obviously he knows how to winnow very well.
Right.
And so she's like trying to like make sure he doesn't touch her.
Right.
So she like uses her shadow abilities.
Yep.
To kind of turn into shadow and glide around.
Yep. Yeah. He's like, what?
And then of course it's not working, so she has to scare him.
Yep.
So then she pretends like she's been, taken over by the darkness or whatever.
It's fucking hilarious.
And then she shapeshifts wings.
Yep. And that freaks him out.
Yeah.
He's like, whoa! Freya! 4 guards with them kind of like back up.
And he's like, well.
Okay, okay. And doesn't Rhys come in though?
Oh yeah, he does like kind of, after she does the shadow thing and she gets away from them.
Right.
Then he appears to kind of like be like, okay, this just needs to stop right now. Because Lucian just completely like stops and he like backs away when Rhys shows up.
Yeah.
But Rhys was all like decked out in like his fighting stuff.
Yeah.
But when he shows up with Lucian, he uses his magic to
glamour it,
to make him look more professional looking.
Yeah.
Right. And he glamours his wings away, so because he doesn't let anyone know he has wings.
Right.
He's always hides them. Right. He glamours them usually. He doesn't like people knowing he's an Illyrian because they can use that as a weakness, right?
Right.
To attack his wings, so he hides them. And that's how Hybern tracks him, and that's how he ends up getting shot down.
They track his
the next day because he used the magic to glamour himself really fast. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That sucks though. But yeah, that was pretty cool that she had talons and she had wings.
Yeah, from Tamlin because it's his ability,
yep.
really, the shape-shifting ability.
Yep.
Yep.
And she shape-shift almost into anything now.
Yeah.
And she create little monsters out of water, little birds, bears, wolves. Yes, she's got the power.
We already talked about the attack on Valaris. We did that like the beginning.
Yeah, I was not happy.
And I don't want
to
even talk about the human queens because they suck fucking ass. So we'll just skip that.
I was just really devastated when they started talking about the body that fell, and she was like
the one that gave the book. Yeah,
and they started describing her, and then they said the blonde curly hair, and I said, "Oh my god, that's a queen."
But she did mention in the note, and when they went to that other meeting, the last meeting where she was hiding the book.
She said, "Don't trust them."
She mentioned that the first meeting there was a queen that was missing, right? And they said she was ill, and she said that she wasn't ill.
No.
So it makes you wonder, like, okay, is this queen like also on their side, and that's why there's something happening, and that's why she's not there? Don't know.
Who knows?
And then I guess the last thing we should talk about is that everything that happened at the fucking end, which was just like a big
fuck fest, but not an actual fucking.
Yeah, no, there's no sex.
It's a clusterfuck. Yeah, it's like what the fuck.
So they have this whole plan, right? That Feyre can nullify the cauldron. They have to get to the cauldron. And
they got to the cauldron, but
it was a setup.
Yep.
And they get caught.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't winnow out.
No.
They can't use their powers.
Their magic gets
And Feyre a couple of times
suppressed.
She uses her magic to break, because she does have the ability to break curses.
Mm-hmm.
It's another High Lord's ability. So she's able to, there's periods of time where she's able to use her magic because she has to go through and she like breaks the spells and stuff.
Right.
But nobody else can use their magic.
No.
Asriel they shot an arrow through his chest.
Yeah.
and they use that. Basically, he's okay if it doesn't move like to his heart,
right,
and the poison and all that. So they use that to basically control them so that they don't do anything. And Cassian gets his wings all shredded up.
Yeah, that. God, to hear him scream when they did that, because we're listening to an actual theodoctric.
Yeah.
That I can't wait to see this on screen though.
But you want to see it on screen, but you don't want to see
it on screen. No, but I mean, that was really difficult to hear that, and I'm thinking, oh my God, that's his wings.
Yeah, and it reminds me of the first book when that one fairy lost his wings.
Yeah,
and he's like,
and they cut his.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was so sad.
So Jurian shows up. He's been resurrected from the cauldron. And he just wants to know where Miriam is because he was in love with Miriam at one time.
She's dead.
Well, Moore says she's dead, but we don't, he doesn't believe her.
No.
And,
because she's not.
And Jurian is working with Hybern, but again, we don't know why. We know that they have some sort of a bargain worked out.
Yeah, it sounds like everybody has a bargain with this king.
And then Tamlin shows up because, he just gets better and better. And we find out that he wants Feyre back so badly, regardless of what she has to say, that he made a bargain with Hybern to basically, if he can find a way to capture Feyre and give Feyre back to him, that he will let Hybern come in and use the Spring Court to break down the wall and enter the human lands.
What a fucker.
So, he was bad already. He was bad just with Feyre by herself. Then he gets worse with Rhys's family, and then you add this on.
'Cause bad Tamlin, baddest High Lord in the whole damn land.
And we know that Ianthe was a piece of shit because we saw earlier a memory that Rhys showed Feyre about how Ianthe was, trying to, use men to control them.
Right.
Because she's the one who wants power.
Right.
He throws her out.
Right. They want... The priestess want to be able to control everybody else. Well,
she does.
She does.
Not all the priestesses.
No, but she does. Because she's a fuck twat.
And she used the information that Feyre gave her about her family. She has a bargain with Hybern.
Yeah, that's just
because Hybern is going to remove the High Lords and make the priestesses take their places. And she's giving up Feyre's sisters to use as leverage with Feyre.
Keeps talking to herself in her mind and breaks the little bit of a curse that she can break in so she can actually use some of her magic to go completely I am the light.
Yeah, so she distracts everybody, so she starts having a fit, like she was having a seizure, and then she lets the light out, and the only time she ever uses the light is when she has sex. That's what she was hoping Rhys would know, that it was just, fake, right?
Right, because Rhys even said, we'll have to teach you how to turn that down some. Whenever
she's happy, she gets lit up.
Right.
So it doesn't make any sense why she would all of a sudden be lit up like that. But she uses it as a distraction, and then after she breaks while the light's out, she breaks so they can winnow out.
Yeah, she breaks the wards.
Yeah. But again, she has no way of telling them that she broke the wards. Because she can't talk to them.
Right, because she doesn't have that connection with him right now because all the magic has been suppressed.
Right. And then she realizes that there's no way anyone's going to get out, so she has to sacrifice herself somehow. And she realizes that if she just goes along with Tamlin, because the whole reason why he's there, and that's why Hybern wanted her to begin with, is because he has a bargain with Tamlin, is that if she just fulfills the bargain, essentially, she can be taken away. But she fakes it to make it look like she was under Rhys's mind control or whatever, so that way Tamlin will not suspect anything. Right? He'll just kind of treat her like she's always did.
Tamlin? Playing oh, fuck. Oh, okay, I gotta play this really well. I gotta act like I haven't seen him in a long time.
And that I'm still in love with him, and that I'm, the same person I was back. bad.
Because she is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Can I love your music? Thank you. Keep writing it.
Her sisters get put into the cauldron
Yes.
to show the queens that it's safe.
Safe to get in there.
Right. And again, that happens before she does things. So
Right.
all these things are giving her reasons why she needs to get everyone out of there.
So both of her sisters become elves.
Elves. Yeah, become Fae.
Fae.
Yeah.
Become Fae, yeah.
Yeah. And we find out that Elaine is Lucian's mate.
Yes, after she becomes Fae, which is really weird.
Well, and we know that that's typical, right? Like, the bond, like, hits, like, because Rhys said that he didn't, I mean,
but he knew it before.
Well, he assumed, but he didn't have the mating bond wasn't there. Like, they've been soulmates the whole time. It's just the mating bond clicks into place. So when she died and she came back, right, at that ending scene, right?
Right.
Where he calls her and she goes up at the end and they kind of look like they're getting along and whatever. And then there's the part where, like, he's getting ready to leave. Mm-hmm. And he, like, if you read it again, it's in there, but it, like, his eyes get really big and then he just disappears. Like, he winnows out. Because he realizes that they're mates, right? Then at that time, right?
Aww.
So Lucian, it's the same thing. Like, Lucian and Elaine would have always been mates. But they've never met before, right?
Right.
But because she turned Fae and he's standing right there in front of her, the bond clicked into place. Mm. We end the book. Oh God! The first time I read it, I actually thought their bond was broken. I almost freaked the fuck out.
I know. I was getting scared there for a minute.
I was so upset when I first read that.
Like when they
actually paused the fucking book when I first read it. I was like, I actually had to, like, stop working and go sit for a while because I was pissed. I was so fucking pissed. Like, I felt like I lost the bond. I was so upset.
Because I was like, no. That's what I was thinking in my head. No, that can't help it. And then she's like, her chest hurt, and he hurt because it was painful what they were doing. But it wasn't the fact that their mating bond.
No, their bargain.
It was the bargain bond that was broken.
Yeah, so she doesn't have to go once a month. But she lives there now, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
But yeah, she doesn't have to go visit once a month anymore.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But I know, I mean, I thought the bond was broken there for a moment.
Oh my God.
I was like, no, how could you do this to me?
Oh boy. Oh, I wish I could have been a fly on the wall that day. But no, I was glad that when it continued and he was like, well, it's like,
that's the first time he announced. Nobody knew about it
because they did it the night before.
Yeah, they did it the night before.
Hell, we didn't even know they did it until then.
That scene, he says, like, I have something else that I want to do, and then it breaks off. Right. And it doesn't tell you what
they went and did.
What else they did.
Right.
So.
But I guess that was it. But if it wasn't for that, I would have thought the same thing. I'd be like, no, oh my God, how are they going to get back together?
Well, yeah, that's why that's there. I mean, you don't know until that part. And then he talks about how it's not... Like, Amren's like, that's impossible. You can't break that kind of a bond.
Right.
It doesn't...
You can't.
And he's like, yeah, I know. He was just playing along. Like, that scene where he's like, no, don't break it. I was like... I was all upset. Like... But yeah, so then you find out that it was all just a dramatic thing, and then she's in the spring court having a good old time with Lucian doesn't fucking believe her. Damn well he doesn't.
No, he doesn't.
Well, first of all, we know that he saw her with the wings and all that shit, right? Right. And then while they're there with the cauldron and all that, he also realizes that she's acting really out of character, right? Like, 'cause Lucian actually knows her better than Tamlin, right? They were friends. They had... Yes. And she's not... Her sisters were taken by the Night Court, and she supposedly was being manipulated and controlled by the Night Court, and her sisters got taken from them, and she just doesn't... She's fine with it.
That's why I'm saying, he goes, but they're taking my mate.
Yeah. But he looks at Feyre because she's just calm about it. Like, like she's not saying anything that they took her sisters. Like, her sisters were supposed to go with them.
Mm-hmm.
And they went, and they were taken by the Night Court. And she's not, like, you know, because Feyre's the kind of person that would be like, I'm gonna go and get them back. And she's just like, I mean, she says, she tells Lucian, don't worry, we'll get them back. But that's so not her, that's so out of character for her.
Yeah.
And Tamlin, of course, because he doesn't know Feyre at all, he's just, oh yeah, she's just the normal, you know, Feyre's back, and, you know, all this is just normal.
Not really, but okay. I hope Lucian's smart enough to leave with her when she does finally leave. You know, so this book, you know, brought happiness to my life because it's like, oh, that's what I want, you know, and I got to see it unfold, and it was a good story. It was well written, and, you know, but the end, and she has to go back in that fool's house, and no, I don't want her to go in there. He's a narcissist. He's a pig.
But at least she's going in there as an empowered person, right?
She's going in there to whoop ass. Hopefully. I would.
Yeah.
I mean,
you can kind of assume so because of the song.
Yes.
You know? Oh, speaking of the songs, I want to talk about the playlist before we cut off.
Okay.
So, I mean, I've been putting them in the show notes, but where are we in this playlist? We are... So I have a Court of Feels and Fangirling playlist on Spotify that is basically in plot order. All the songs are in plot order. And the ending of book 2 is basically, let's see, so we read so Starfall. So the song Starfall is where chapter 44 was.
Mm-hmm.
And we are now, we ended on You Made Me a Monster, and we're starting with Cinderella's Dead. That's the first song of book.
I forgot that Cinderella was dead. I love that song.
So that's where we are.
I'm a badass.
That is where we are
yes.
starting off here.
Yes.
If you're following along.
For those that do listen, we do have a Facebook page. So if you want to join our Facebook page so you can get the link as well.
Oh, and since you guys are also done, because I've been hiding some of the playlists.
Oh.
Since now you're done with book 2, you know, I have that Rhysand and Feyre playlist, which I didn't mention because I didn't want, you know, to spoil anything for anybody. Well, and I also have my Tampon, the High Lord playlist, which is, you know, devoted to Tamlin. And,
yes.
And I have an instrumental playlist.
Okay.
Which is basically the same thing as this one, where it's like in plot order, but it's all instrumental music.
But if you want to find us on Facebook, it's eclecticsoulpodcast.org, or at eclecticsoul.podcast.org. I can't talk because it's getting really late at night.
Yep.
And you can follow us there, leave comments there. You can find our playlist there. Links to Apple and Spotify for our podcast, our YouTube links when we post our videos. And if you like and subscribe to any of our stuff, then of course you'll get an email letting you know that we've dropped something. So we appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for listening to our YouTube. I'm still in awe how many people that started listening to our podcast. It's in the thousands. I never expected that. I'm still like, wow. So I would definitely appreciate it if you shared it with people. Like I said, like and subscribe. If you listen to a podcast when you're driving or whatnot, if you have Spotify or Apple, go to them. Rate us if you could, please. Like, share, subscribe from there. Join us on Facebook. Join us on Instagram. We appreciate each and every single one of you. And I just want to say namaste. Thank you very much. For the rest of this podcast, I think I'll just sign off and say thank you and goodbye and much love and light. And I don't know. I'm just really touched. So, we'll see you next time, I guess. Oh, and we're also going to be dropping a podcast for Egyptian readings that we did over the weekend. So I don't know when they'll drop, but they'll drop. So Jen's really busy.
By the time you hear this, they would have already dropped already.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, anything else you want to say?
I think you've said it all.
Said it all?
Yeah.
Okay. All right then.
So,
y'all have a safe week. Blessed be.
Bye.
Bye. And if you would like to contact us, you may do so at our email, eclecticsoulpodcast@gmail.com. Our Instagram account is Eclectic Soul Podcast. Our Facebook is eclecticsoul.org. Our YouTube is Eclectic Soul. Jen?
If you want to reach me, my personal website is Music and Mystery. My SoundCloud is the SoundCloud page, the soundcloud.com/Jennifer-Feltman. My Facebook is @Music and Mystery, and my Instagram is @Music and Mystery.
And if you would like to reach me personally, my Facebook is @JustCallMeJinJin. My Instagram is @CallMeJinJin or look for Goddess. And my Twitter is @JenSullivan. Thank you and have a blessed day.
Blessed be.